I think this is the first step of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, to share one mic amongst all the panelists. So let me start the panel discussion. First is one single question to all of you, is one line answer. What is meant to you by Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? One line.
So going back to the theory, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the world is flat.
So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the whole world is one family, and therefore when we go for startups, we have to see that everybody comes up rather than one becoming greedy or one becoming jealous about others.
I would say for startups, go global, go green.
Think about everyone and act for everyone. That is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Couple of questions for, drafted the question for individuals. I'll start with Gireendra sir. How is the current startup ecosystem in India, and what are major problem statements being addressed?
The current startup ecosystem in India is going fantastic. Everywhere I go in the world, I heard the word recession. You don't hear the word recession in India. In fact, what we are seeing is a virtuous cycle that is happening. Everything that we see is going exponential. And I like to say I come from IT services background. 2-3 decades back, we used to be proud of saying that Indian CIOs are running 50% of the US companies. Indian CIOs everywhere. We don't talk about that anymore. Today we are talking about Indian CEOs running most of the marquee companies in the US. And believe me, the next decade is Indian products taking over the entire world. So it's all going virtuous cycle. Now, I don't think anybody disagrees here, so I can just quickly move ahead. The second question was what are the large problems that the startup ecosystem is dealing with. I have a slightly different answer to that, and I'll give you a cricket analogy. So let's say a cricket catch goes up. Do you see all the 11 players running towards that catch? No. Right. So I don't see the significance of saying what are the largest problems. What are you going to do? Are you all going to run after that one large problem? That's not going to work. So the largest problem for each one of you is what is closest to your heart. The catch that is coming to you is the largest one. So if you can focus on the problem that appeals to you most, that touches your heart the most, that is what is likely to give you most success. Rather than looking at what the others are doing and you saying, okay, me too, I would also solve that problem. So that is my answer to your question.
Not me too.
Yes.
Question to Yajuvendra sir. Do you feel that we are an inclusive society in terms of when we think of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam from startup point of view?
थोड़ा निगेटिव हो जाएगा, लेकिन we are not at all inclusive. Initially, for last few years, we have started now realizing what is inclusion. Having inclusive society is a very huge task, but inclusive, we are not inclusive because we have left our roots. For last 30-40 years, we have been thinking on a very different plane, and that is being self-centered, me, myself. और मुझे जो चाहिए वो ढंग से होना चाहिए, that's it. And actually that is not being Indian. In our culture, in our religion, it is like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, सारे मेरे हैं, विश्व बंधुत्व, all are my brothers and sisters. So जब हम ऐसा सोचते हैं, then we start doing the things accordingly. If our thinking is that me, myself, my own space, my progress, my life, it is absolutely against Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So we are not inclusive. It means that we are not a society or a place or a country where all get the things whatever they wish as far as living is concerned, thinking is concerned, taking education, being in the business, wherever you are, there is a space, there is a facility for all. There is inclusionness is absolutely starts with your heart and in your mind. So we are not that place, but we are now trying to become inclusive.
I'll just add something to this. As a Indians, I think all of us worship Bhumi, we worship water, we worship animals, we worship trees, and we worship everything. I think we have gone slightly away from that practice currently, but I think as Indian, I think we have been practicing that, and I think that would be a point of what you are saying, that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is inclusion of all, including trees, animals, and everything. It's beyond human beings, I think. I will come to Ajay. Ajay, why did you choose to support this innovation challenge? This is slightly different question because we have to keep on chanting the topics.
So, as you know, Milind and some of my friends here, I have been an entrepreneur for life. I started going to my own factory on the first day of my career. And that has been an inspiration to me. I have been encouraging entrepreneurship even within the organization that I am. So we have verticals at various locations in India, and each of the vertical owner is an entrepreneur within the organization. That's how the entrepreneurship का कीड़ा जिसको बोलेंगे वो पहले से था. The other thing, of course, is it gives me more reasons to connect back to Aurangabad. It's a very big incentive. Coming back to the roots and making sure that I spend this afternoon with all of you, meet friends, go around, and give me one more reason. And of course, the third reason being 3D engineering, the organization that I run has
world. In last few years, many gifts are given to world by India. Can we elaborate few of them? Although it's not a part of this thing, but things are getting institutionalized globally. Can you throw some light on maybe Dr. Ranjan Garge on maybe Ayurveda going global or that kind of stuff? Maybe yoga going global.
Environmental aspect. Any aspect.
When we talk about the ecosystem in a startup, ecosystem basically consists of maybe more than one components. And if one component becomes extinct, the whole thing gets worst. And I think in that context, when there is a startup, and when we say that we worship, as you said, Pancha Mahabhuta, so worshipping Pancha Mahabhuta and actually respecting them, they are two very different things. And what we are doing is exactly the reverse what we are expected to do. For example, what we should look into is reuse. What we should talk about is recycling. What we should talk about is sustainability. And sustainable development, I think, has become a global concept now. Where the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change has enforced 17 sustainable goals on we all people, and especially they say that now there won't be any development as such, but it would be a green development, green economy, that is very important. And therefore what number you are achieving in economy is not important, but how green you are in your economy is important. So from that point of view, I think ecosystem in startups has to improve. For example, I think one of the presentations that I was going in our panel, it was all the cold chain, and I just asked him a simple question that okay, you are carrying a refrigerator, but how is the cooling system working? And that cooling system was working on CFC. If it works on CFC, I think we are not environmentally friendly, because that basically results into the ozone depletion and all that. So what I mean is, when you talk about profits and losses, we'll also look into whether it is really hampering the environment or not. And I think that is what is the aim with which we are sitting over here, and that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Thank you.
Some of the ideas for funding on this concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and if
I can answer this question with two different hats. One is of course Pentathlon Ventures, which is a VC fund which is for profit, and we invest into B2B companies, seed stage and all of that. And the second, which I thought was even more relevant, is I'm also part of the Pune International Center, and we have this Social Innovation Lab. So if I must give, excuse me for plugging that here, it's a non-profit, you're probably aware of that. Yajuvendra was just telling me that he was there for the first NCSI, National Conference for Social Innovation. We have it on 17th of November every year. And we invite applications, hundreds of applications come. And I could see that almost every pitch that we saw today could easily fit into that program. And what we do is select 6 tribal, 6 rural and 6 urban startups for presenting as finalists on that NCSI event on 17th of November. At the moment, the stage is that we are actually assessing the appeals that have come to us. So maybe it's too late for this year, but I would encourage everybody to at least attend that event. It's open for all and be part of that ecosystem, because it's extremely important. The Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, what I see is the, like I was saying, going green, going global, the sustainability part is very much part of the theme. Waste to wealth is such a big topic that we are deciding to write a paper, a booklet on it. Learning from all such startups that we have seen in the past, and what could be a playbook for everything. We call it like triple E. You're saving the ecology, you're not wasting something, you're creating wealth, that is economy. In the process, you're creating jobs to some underprivileged category. So this waste to wealth or the triple E that you're talking about, I could see in many of the startups that we are seeing here. So that is a direct fit, and I would encourage everybody to participate in that. On the for-profit side, Pentathlon, what happens is this: we may not invest in a company that is directly working in sustainability, let's say, for example. I mean, that's a very good point. I think Muktak made that in our brief discussion, that you should actually have 2 different categories, one social impact and one for-profit. Because these metrics are different. I mean, I think Nina talked about the revenue metric. Revenue metric is of course important for the for-profit. The non-profits also have metrics. They may not be revenue or profit. Revenues will be the profits, may not be the metric, but there has to be an impact metric which has to scale very fast, like Nina was saying. Now, that is the difference in the metrics, but for the for-profit also, even if you are focusing on the revenue metric, it is extremely important not to be unaware of or not to be blindsided by things that are happening around you. And sometimes this could be technology, for example, Gen AI, that will be impacting. But the other thing is sustainability. You cannot be building a use case which is actually detrimental to the sustainability considerations. No matter how well you are doing on the profit metrics and all of those things, you have to be aware of what is happening on the sustainability side. So I would say that on the for-profit side, it also becomes a very important consideration, though it may not seem so. Because as a fund, we all know that we are looking at the next 5 to 10 years. We are not looking at today. We all know that next 5 to 10 years, these considerations are going to be extremely important. So you will be blindsided, you will be suffering terribly if you are not taking into account these kind of effects. So I would say that.
I think Yajuvendra was slightly disappointed, but I have some different question. Yajuvendra, I understand there is a huge budgets in CSR, and those budgets are not getting spent properly because of 2 reasons. There is a lack of right ecosystem and lack of the entrepreneurship to support that spending. I think there is a huge opportunity for the startups to enter into that space, because I think when I was with Yajuvendra, some budget of national level budget is almost, I think, 50,000 crores or something. So would you guide some of the startups on how they can think of CSR as a startup idea.
We are actually working with persons with disabilities, orphans, transgenders and underprivileged youth in India for their mainstream higher education. And there are budgets, CSR budgets, even government schemes are there all over the country. But here, from the point of view of NGOs, I would like to mention one thing which Ninaji shared. The pitch is very important. What do you do exactly? Or whatever the procedure you have been following here for startups, same procedure should be there and same plan and working should be there at NGO level. If it is there, then startups would be working with them, even funding would be there. And as far as CSR funds are concerned, we have to do same thing there. We have to pitch the idea, we have to give all the presentations. And no matter what you have been working, that idea must be very powerful. But how have you planned it today, tomorrow, and as far as sustainability is concerned, that is to be taken care of. So I think that is very important.
So what I could make out, there are a lot of funds available with the companies in CSR. There is a need from the NGO side, but the bridge to connect both is currently lacking. And I think in some of the ideas, if startups can pitch in with those ideas, they can really go on a big scale.
Being inclusive society, it is expected that we should be able to think about all the members of the society. इसका मतलब है मेरा एक बेटा है जिसको दोनों पैर दोनों हाथ नहीं है. He has to live the life. He has dreams in his eyes. Okay, he can also prosper. But do you have ecosystem? Do you have products for them? As Prashant Dada was very inspired that एक बेटी है जिसको दोनों हाथ नहीं है. Now imagine what products she would require. There are thousands and lakhs of people in the world, not from point of view of only business. They are part of our life. That is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. हम कब सोचते हैं जब हमारा बेटा बेटी जब जैसे होते हैं ना, then we start thinking कि अरे कुछ करना चाहिए. This is not Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Every person in the society, whether he is in problem or not, whether what he or she requires, we should be able to think about it. And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam ये यदि हमने सोच लिया ना, it would give you more power and ideas to think about it. हम वो सोच ही नहीं रहे ना, हमारा limited thinking है. That's why creation में या innovation में भी problem आता है. जब हम सबके बारे में सोचेंगे, when you put yourself into their shoes, then you would have more ideas.
Absolutely, excellent.
Actually, I wanted this answer to come from Yajuvendra. Coming to Ajay, I think Ajay's father is passionate about water as a subject. He is publishing magazine named Jal Samvad for last many years. He recently attended one of the program in Europe somewhere. He is just, I think, minus 20. Minus 20 is 80 plus. So there is the new phrase to talk of the age. So can you talk something about his passion and something related to water as well?
Thank you, Milind, for bringing that up. He's minus 16, by the way. So at the age 84, we are all amazed that he took a decision to go to Stockholm, where there's a World Water Week happening, which is like a pandari of water around the world. And about his activity for the last 20 years, he has been working in the area of water literacy. So when I say water literacy, it's not just about water as a resource and then going into the irrigation part of it, or maybe talking about the topologies, the soil and things like that, because he's not coming from a background which is like a civil engineer or an irrigation person. He is a commerce guy, he's a thorough commerce and economics guy. And after his retirement, he thought that it's best to spend his pension on the cause of literacy, because he's a teacher all his life. So through the literacy, he is trying to ensure that people are aware that what are the various avenues of conserving water, how to do that. At the same time, he is also making sure that through his literacy program, he is running messages about the hygiene of water. There are various issues that come with, for example, water and women, water and children, water and regions and things like that, which make sure that through the literature that has been created, which by the way has been published in several languages also now. So yes, that's what we're trying to do. Apart from this activity, I am also a very strong Rotarian. And, one of the Rotary initiatives that we have taken in the region that I work for is about water conservation by using very small things. So can you imagine just an attachment which goes along with your tap, and it saves you 10 liters of water per day. So it's so much. So you can imagine if it is saving you 3,650 liters of water from one tap, you have at least 5 taps in your home. So that's maybe going around to 15,000 liters of water per household. And you can imagine a society of 50 people. So you're actually able to save millions and millions of liters of water just by having a small equipment. That equipment costs 50 rupees. So that's how much. So we are trying to promote that as an activity. We are also trying to use solar power for water pumping and a lot of other things. So yeah, so water is very good to my heart. As much as entrepreneurship is, and primarily that comes from.
There are a lot of startups.
Yes, unfortunately the panel on which I was, there's none of which was in the water space, and I was hoping to study some.
I think there are a couple of startups who are doing something in water. I was in the panel. I think water is one of the area where a lot of things can be done as a startup. Whatever number we do, it's less. Question to Dr. Garge sir. How R&D institutions, maybe NGOs and companies like Magic can come together for creating the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam kind of system?
I think there can be made a magic if 3 things come together, and for which we are all waiting. But since till today, we find that very unfortunately, the academic environment is not allowing you to do so. Means exactly the problem is whatever researches are being conducted in the universities, they unless go out on the ground, it's just of no use. And therefore, I think one of the efforts that is being made is having incubation centers. You know that Atal Incubation Center has been set up on the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University campus itself. The very reason is there are all central facilities available for the startup people. And when I had an occasion to visit, there are 4 startups going on. And therefore, industries and academicians, unless they come together, added with NGOs like your companies, then only you will be understanding the ground realities, what are the needs of the society, and accordingly maybe the PhD research topics should be set, and accordingly. Say for example, there are a lot of paradigms which are shifting nowadays. Say the antibiotics to probiotics. Maybe after a few years antibiotics will be no more. They all will be probiotics. Maybe we are shifting from inorganic to organic. So all these kinds of shifts are possible only if the academicians work in the laboratory. Because everything actually is generated in the laboratory, that we must believe. And then it goes to the ground. M.S. Swaminathan, as you all know, he just died yesterday only. So what he was trying to tell you is agriculture must go to the ground from lab to field. And I think this is possible if more and more academicians, they actually come into this and give solutions, practical solutions to the problems. And I think your father is one of the teachers who actually brought all these things on the ground level, and he is trying to solve things. So I think this triangle would definitely solve many of the environmental issues that a general man is facing in our country or throughout the world. Thank you.
One last question to all. I think it is almost 2 o'clock. One business idea related to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and what kind of support system you expect Magic to have in place. So there are two questions to be answered. If you have some idea which can be related to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and what kind of structure you would recommend Magic to have. So all of us, we can improve on that.
If I had that idea, I would have pitched it to you. We are sitting in Marathwada, which is called as Santanji Bhumi, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam first, what you can say, written down by Jnaneshwar in Jnaneshwari, saying that He Vishwachi Malikara. And no better place than Magic, where we are in the Santanji Bhumi, to ensure that this He Vishwachi Malikara is imbibed into the theory. So when we say that, unfortunately, like we just heard that it's not so positive on the side of the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam part, where we are looking into geopolitical wars, gold wars, and things like that. I think we need to find something which does not have boundaries. And we have birds flying from one country to the other without visas. So we should have some ideas which fly like birds. And what we should primarily think of is something which will be very close to the heart, which are things which are primarily revolving around climate change as an activity. Because if we are taking a global target of restricting the temperature rise to a particular level, then we should be talking about something which is across boundaries. And nothing else comes to my mind talking about climate change as one of the activities which should be addressed, and I would be very happy if I can play any part in that. Thank you.
The other day I was sitting in Vanrai's office and talking to Mohan Dharia's son, Ravindra Dharia. And there one idea came. Of course, that idea had solutions, and probably what happens is, many a times you don't know what is happening somewhere in one corner, and you are in the need of it. So he was, by the way, telling me that when we actually use these biofertilizers, they are not actually working in agricultural field. And there I said that there is one of my students is working on one project, and that is sulfur solubilization. See, there is a big problem of solubilization of minerals in soil. Unless they solubilize, they can't be taken up by the plants. And that's a very micro level kind of an idea. And I said, I gave him a phone number also. And he said he has a startup of this only. And he's in Pune only. And why not to try? And of course, they had a communication. They called him, and they actually took him to the field, and I think at least sulfur solubilization problem, the nitrogen fixation problem is there, iron solubilization is there. So they are the problems which basically are on a very micro level, and we need to have a lot of work to do on this particular aspect. And ultimately, the problem, I don't know whether it is solved or not. It is not that easy to solve the natural and environmental problems, let me tell you. But this is one of the ideas which are now coming up in the field of agriculture, that is inorganic to organic, and that is one.
When I was listening to your question, I was thinking of the two questions I typically have in my mind when I'm hearing a pitch and I have to decide on the funding. And the first question is, why you? Meaning, why are you as the founders uniquely placed to solve the problem that you're trying to solve? So you have to have a good answer for that, why you, because otherwise you're not going to be able to compete, others are going to do that. So why you is one of the big questions I have. And the second one is, why now? Because what is it now that is happening? What has changed now that makes your problem and your solution much more relevant? And to me, it seems like for more and more startups, the answer to why now is going to be Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. To the point that Ajay mentioned, that lots of these considerations have started becoming stronger and stronger now. So I see that a lot of startups will have their why now answer in this, and so they must look at this particular aspect. So what Magic should do is direct the companies here, the startups here and entrepreneurs here to think about these two questions, and if they have really good answers for these two questions. Thank you.
I have two things to share with you very shortly. One is the real meaning of ecosystem. I have experienced it with Magic. It is really a wonderful concept in Marathwada. I think many people, many universities may be inspired by this kind of working, as so many people have come together and doing this thing. It is our contribution to the society. Second thing, I realized today one thing, that there are so many social problems, okay? So, this kind of ecosystem should be there to solve the social problem through startups. Maybe त्याचा स्केल खूप मोठा maybe नसणार आहे, maybe, but this kind of thing should be followed to solve the social problems in a business way. Yeah, thank you very much.
I think we had very nice interaction with all the panelists. It is already 2 o'clock and time for
question.
If somebody has a question for the panelists, we have 5-10 minutes.
Judges, whoever.
Whatever. Questions, suggestions, please come forward. We don't have mic to offer you over there. Please come forward.
To my mind that we were talking about sustainability, right? So ESG is one of the hottest topic right now. So all these big corporates, and I myself work in MNC. So the idea is, how can you not just deliver solution, but also make it sustainable? So recently we worked on ESG hackathon actually, where every company is associated with a certain ESG score. It tells you about environmental, social and governance score. So something to keep in mind if that can be the national responsibility associated with each company. So that's all.
Discussion. Just had a follow-up question on the CSR fund. Can a private limited company, it's a social enterprise, but it is for profit, can it somehow use this CSR fund? It is making a social impact, it is helping environment, but it is for profit. So how can we bridge this gap?
Kinds of firms can receive CSR funds, if I am wrong.
But there is an interesting workaround that we have found in PIC startups that the organization that I mentioned. So suppose somebody was working for blind people, then what they do, they are a for-profit company, but they give the CSR money for the beneficiaries, and then they get that as a revenue for themselves. That is possible. So the CSR can be raised by the blind school or something like that, and this startup is providing the whatever products exactly. So that's a good workaround to use.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I think the question what came to his mind, that was exactly the point was I was trying to emphasize upon the CSR budget national level. It's not getting exhausted. Most of the funds are still parked in FDs because companies or corporate don't find the right kind of solution providers, and there is huge need in the system. Maybe you can take one of the sector, maybe physically disabled or maybe for eyesight, etc. If there is the right solution, then the companies would definitely pay for it, although it's a profit making. So I see a big opportunity in that space as well.
Association with Deepa Sambha Foundation as Expert Global Solutions, we have committed certain amount of our CSR fund for developing products for the physically challenged people. So there are 2 fellows which we have sponsored who are called Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship. It's a 2-year course. We said we'll take that. We are now in the process of identifying the problem statements. So there will be maybe a list of 500 problems. We'll zero down on 5, select one and start working on that. And what we said is that once it gets into production, as a royalty it will go back to the Sambhav Foundation because they are equal investors in that. So probably this is first time we are experimenting, but I am confident that other social organizations can also look for such tie-ups, is what I feel. Professor, you wanted to say?
I just want to take this opportunity to show up with an example of how this is actually taking place. So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam was part of my thesis. My PhD is in revenue strategy. So I wrote about this in 2014. And it took me about 9 years to actually do something to implement it. I work for the Tatas. The Tatas are known as one of the most impactful social organizations in this country. If you were to look at one key factor that we picked up, so we're trying to address hunger. And the manner in which we're trying to address hunger is saying, we can probably remove hunger by eating right. Right? So if we eat right, we're probably going to solve the hunger problem for someone else. And we discovered that the gap was in the knowledge that people, we are likely not to become a hungry nation in the next 10 years. And a small contribution is to just manage your recipes every day. And this is the contribution that I'd like to make at this forum to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Thank you so much.
We are at the end of the session. Thank you all the panelists for your excellent contribution and comments. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tables covering. Thank you.